Watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
Well, listen. If you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and 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 on.
Oh, you're going to love this one. Karoline Leavitt just schooled Whoopi Goldberg. Live, unfiltered, and absolutely ruthless. This wasn't just a clapback, it was a full-scale takedown. And Whoopi, she was left stunned. You could see the regret written all over her face, like she was silently asking herself, why did I even start this? Trust me, this is Leavitt at her absolute best. Sharp, fearless, and dropping truth bombs like it's second nature. And the fallout that follows, pure gold. Let's get into it.
Would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you worked for.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Karoline, thank you very much for your time.
Whoopi Goldberg rules The View like a queen bee, untouchable, unstoppable. Alongside Sunny Hostin, she's known for her sharp tongue and zero-filter approach, always ready to take on anyone, especially Trump. But there's one name that completely throws them off their game, Karoline Leavitt. At just 27, the White House press secretary has become their worst nightmare, delivering truth bombs that leave Whoopi and her crew scrambling for cover. This isn't just pushback. It's total obliteration. And trust me, the way it all started, absolute gold. Let me break it down for you. Joy Behar, The View's eternal backup singer, set things in motion with a classic eye-roll take, claiming Karoline Leavitt's meteoric rise was all thanks to her looks.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
This is the first time that she's been she may be. But my point is that job would not maybe have been open to her.
No, I understand. I just wanted to clarify.
Of course, because whenever a young conservative woman rises to success, it must be because of her looks, right? Typical. And just when you thought the cringe couldn't get any worse, Whoopi jumped in, boldly claiming that Karoline Leavitt wouldn't have made it without the guidance of voices like theirs. Yes, you heard that right. Whoopi Goldberg, the same woman who constantly stumbles over her own contradictions, actually believes Leavitt owes her success to The View. Talk about delusion. But here's where it gets really good, because Karoline didn't just respond, she obliterated them. So get ready.
Watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality.
No truer words have been spoken. If you're looking for the walking, talking definition of being out of touch with reality, just take a look at Whoopi Goldberg. Seriously, it's 2025, and she's still clinging to the outdated notion that a woman's success must be tied to her looks. Hello? We left that nonsense in the Stone Age. Whoopi isn't just throwing shade, she's grasping at the last threads of relevance. Because when someone like Karoline Leavitt steps onto the scene with intelligence, confidence, and a resume that speaks for itself, people like Whoopi can't handle it. They don't see talent or hard work, they see a threat. But here's the kicker. Whoopi didn't just stop at the pretty face jab. Oh no, she doubled down, insisting that Leavitt wouldn't have found success without the so-called enlightened guidance of The View. Yes, Whoopi actually believes that her panel of daytime divas is somehow responsible for conservative women making moves. And if you thought that level of arrogance was peak Whoopi, just wait. Because her next response, that's the moment she goes from out of touch to completely unhinged.
Listen, if you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and 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 on.
This one really gets under my skin. It's one thing to challenge someone's ideas. That's fair game. But when you can't win the argument and decide to toss facts aside in favor of cheap personal jabs, that's just lazy. And, of course, Whoopi Goldberg took the low road, completely ignoring Karoline Leavitt's actual points and going straight for her speaking skills. Because apparently, when you have nothing intelligent to add. Mocking someone's delivery is the next best thing. Now picture this. Whoopi, sitting there with that self-satisfied smirk, dismissing Leavitt's argument like it wasn't even worth acknowledging. Can she even get through a sentence without stumbling? She sneered, as if that somehow erased everything Leavitt had just said. But here's what Whoopi didn't see coming. Karoline Leavitt wasn't about to let that slide. And when she fired back, let's just say Whoopi immediately regretted opening her mouth.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
Karoline Leavitt didn't hold back, and let's be real, she didn't need to, because everything she said, just the cold, hard truth. At this point, who hasn't called for The View to be canceled? That show has been circling the drain for years, surviving on nothing but cheap outrage, forced laughter, and an audience trained to clap on cue every time Whoopi or Joy spits out another recycled talking point. And let's not pretend the women at that table don't need some serious damage control. They've dished out some of the most outrageous, tone-deaf takes ever aired on daytime TV. Stuff so ridiculous it practically borders on self-parody. But here's the real kicker. They're not just drowning in bad press. Allegedly, they've got more lawsuits piling up than a Hollywood divorce lawyer in January. Yeah, it's that messy. So when Leavitt called them out, it wasn't just spicy. It was a reality check they've been dodging for way too long.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
When Whoopi realized that ridiculing Karoline Leavitt's speaking skills had completely backfired, she did what every pundit does when backed into a corner. Pretended to care about the actual debate. All right then, game on. Leavitt had already made her position crystal clear. Under her watch, White House press briefings wouldn't be drowning in woke buzzwords and performative outrage. It was all about common sense over emotions. Policies would be evaluated based on logic, not on how. Well, they catered to the latest Twitter outrage, and guess what? That message landed. Hard. So hard that Whoopi was visibly uncomfortable. But did she pause to reflect? Not a chance. Instead, she doubled down, claiming that wokeness wasn't the problem, but rather the very reason Leavitt even had her job. That's right. Whoopi actually suggested that Leavitt, a 27-year-old political force with an impressive track record, owed her success to the same ideology she was actively challenging. Now that's irony. Whoopi didn't just miss the point. She sent it flying into orbit and watched it disintegrate on re-entry. And her expression when Leavitt clapped back? Pure gold. But we'll get to that. First, let me show you another clip, where Whoopi Goldberg and her studio audience mocked Karoline Leavitt after a CNN journalist rudely interrupted her.
I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Karoline, thank you very much for your time.
That was so good.
What Whoopi said next wasn't just absurd, it was downright baffling. But honestly, was anyone really shocked? This is The View after all. If you're tuning in hoping for intellectual depth, you're better off watching a daytime soap opera. Poor Whoopi Goldberg. After decades of hosting The View, producing her own films, and starring in more movies than she can probably recall, you'd think she'd have developed at least a sliver of creativity in her comebacks. A sharp retort, some biting wit, anything to keep things interesting. But nope, Whoopi just can't evolve. Same worn-out arguments, same self-righteous head tilts, same exasperated sighs like she's single-handedly bearing the burden of humanity's ignorance. Except the only thing she's actually carrying is a pile of terrible takes. And this one? A Hall of Fame entry. She seriously argued that Leavitt's rejection of wokeness was dangerous. Yes, dangerous for young women, because apparently, promoting independent thought and merit-based success is now a threat. It wasn't just hypocritical. It was classic Whoopi, loud, wrong, and somehow still proud of it. And you already know what came next. Leavitt didn't just clap back, she obliterated her. But before we get to that, let's hear exactly what Whoopi had to say about Leavitt's response.
In a statement afterwards, this young lady claimed her, quote, on-air snub proves that you know who will not be treated fairly in the upcoming debate. Now, do you think this is going to make people doubt whether CNN can stay objective, or is this more the same of, everybody's against me, it's all rigged, I tell you? Is everything rigged?
No, it's their MO. That's what they do. Rachel Maddow said last week, she's like, if the election is lost, it was rigged. If there's a debate, then the moderators are probably biased and they're prejudiced against.
The entire room went completely silent as Whoopi prepared to speak. You could almost feel the tension, like everyone instinctively knew something ridiculous was coming. And sure enough, instead of sticking to the debate, Whoopi decided to drag her boss, Donald Trump, into the mix. Shocking? Not at all. That's the woke mob's playbook. The moment facts, logic, and basic common sense start exposing their weak arguments, they pivot. They don't just come for you, they come for anyone even remotely connected to you. It's guilt by association, dressed up in moral superiority. Whoopi didn't just suggest that Leavitt's stance was flawed, she outright claimed it was manufactured by Trump himself, as if Leavitt, a 27-year-old political force with more real-world experience than half of Whoopi's Twitter followers combined, couldn't possibly think for herself. And the way Whoopi said it, that smug grin, that condescending tone, like she had just delivered the final blow. Of course she thinks that way. She works for Trump. Classic deflection. No counter-argument, no real rebuttal, just lazy, uninspired character assassination. But if Whoopi thought that cheap shot would shake Leavitt, she couldn't have been more wrong. And deep down, the audience knew it too. Sure, they clapped when Whoopi spoke, but in the back of their minds, they could already sense that their so-called champion was about to take a major hit. Karoline didn't scramble for a response. She simply smiled. It was the kind of smile that said she knew she had the facts and logic to turn the tables and dismantle Whoopi and The View once and for all. Quick pause. If you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying our content. So do us a favor. Hit that like button. It really helps us out. Thanks. Karoline then took a slow, measured glance around the room, the kind of look a lion gives right before it strikes. She didn't need to shout. The truth, when spoken with conviction, slices through silence like a blade. And that's exactly what she delivered: raw, unfiltered facts, cold and unapologetic. She cut straight to the core of the issue: government funding, or more specifically, reckless and wasteful spending. Leavitt made one thing absolutely clear. Under this administration, the era of blank checks for pet projects and feel-good initiatives was over. The top priority? Fixing an economy that's been suffocating under layers of bureaucratic waste. And the moment she brought up woke programs, you could practically hear the panel clutching their pearls. But Leavitt didn't waver. She called out the millions being funneled into so-called inclusive language guides for federal employees, because apparently, changing words was supposed to change reality. Then came the real knockout punch. She exposed how taxpayer money was being drained into gender studies programs disguised as academics, yet producing nothing more than ideological echo chambers. Taxpayers, she declared, had no business funding, political activism masquerading as education. The room went still. Even Whoopi, usually quick with a comeback, was left in stunned silence. But as they say, sometimes silence speaks louder than words.
Divisive and disgusting speech that any president, certainly in my lifetime, has ever given. He essentially waged war on half of the country by saying that we are all a threat to democracy because we believe in putting America first. It's not radical to want to put your country and your own people first. It's not radical to want to have a strong border, a strong military, and to unleash the might of your own economy, not economies around the world.
Karoline isn't just smart, she's razor-sharp, articulate, and always 10 steps ahead. It's almost tragic, that the women on The View chose to mock her instead of giving credit where it's due. But let's be real, we all know why they're doing it. Some might say it's just partisan politics, that they treat every conservative voice this way. But let's not kid ourselves. That's not it. If Karoline were just another awkward, middle-aged bureaucrat regurgitating the same talking points, they wouldn't even blink. No, their fixation on her is personal. It's jealousy, plain and simple. They can't stand the fact that a 27-year-old powerhouse, sharp, stunning, and completely unfazed by their nonsense, has outclassed them on every level. That's why they keep harping on her looks and age, as if competence comes with an expiration date. It's schoolyard-level pettiness, dressed up as commentary. And the best part? Every time they try to tear her down, Karoline just rises higher. Because while they're busy taking cheap shots from the sidelines, she's out there winning.
We have seen cultural Marxism trickling its way through every institution in this country. The public school system, the higher education university system, Hollywood, big tech, the corrupt mainstream media that I fought against in President Trump's White House are indoctrinating my generation of Americans into hating our country, hating one another based on race and gender and all of this other BS, quite frankly.
Whoopi, the self-proclaimed queen of shutting down conservative voices and steamrolling through every conversation, suddenly looked rattled. The once dominant host, always quick to interrupt, mock, and drown out opposing views, now sat uneasy in her chair, like someone who had just seen a ghost, and in a way, she had. Because right across from her sat Karoline Leavitt, calm, composed, and completely unfazed by Whoopi's usual antics. This wasn't just a debate. It was a masterclass in composure versus chaos. Whoopi was outmatched, outclassed, and completely out of her depth. Gone was the smug grin, the sarcastic head tilts, the dismissive chuckles. Instead, her mouth quivered, grasping for a comeback that simply wouldn't come. Her hands, normally waving in exaggerated gestures, now lay stiff on the table, as if moving them would somehow expose just how shaken she really was. Whoopi had built her entire brand on controlling the narrative and keeping her guests on the defensive, but not this time. This time, it was her narrative crumbling, piece by piece, under the weight of Karoline's unshakable truth bombs. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a reckoning, and Whoopi knew it. She was desperate for a commercial break, but it wasn't time yet. The tension in the studio was thick as Whoopi scrambled for a comeback, her usual confidence slipping by the second. In a last-ditch effort, she turned to Joy Behar, silently pleading for a lifeline, hoping she could break the awkwardness with one of her tired, overused Donald Trump jokes.
Somebody just yelled out Trump to me, like, you know, like some kind of weird, what do you call it? Like a blurt.
Outburst?
Just like a blurt to me, like I'm supposed to understand what that means, which I do.
The audience laughed, but it wasn't the usual carefree kind. It was uneasy, strained, like they were laughing because they didn't know what else to do. Even Joy Behar, the self-proclaimed comic relief, tried to swoop in and salvage the moment. But her joke? It landed with all the grace of a lead balloon in a wind tunnel. Awkward, clunky, and painfully misplaced. Instead of easing the tension, it only made it worse. The energy in the room had shifted, and everyone felt it. The usual view playbook, mock, dismiss, move on, was failing. This time, Whoopi wasn't in control. She sat there, visibly shaken, out of snark, out of comebacks, and out of her depth. Karoline's takedown hadn't just bruised her ego. It had shattered her confidence. For once, the woman who always had a sarcastic eye roll, a dismissive wave, or a snide retort was left scrambling, grasping for a lifeline, and she needed saving. But with Behar's punchline already dead on arrival and the audience too uncomfortable to play along, there was no rescue coming. Whoopi had no choice but to bow out, like a defeated prizefighter throwing in the towel. She had been outmatched, outclassed, and outmaneuvered by a 27-year-old press secretary who didn't just hold her ground. She owned the entire exchange. This wasn't just a loss. It was a full-blown humiliation, broadcast for the world to see. And the best part? Karoline's victory wasn't just limited to Whoopi Goldberg and her circle. She commands her space effortlessly and routinely takes down woke reporters without breaking a sweat.
The president and this administration are committed to ensuring that these individuals get the funding that they need. And I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you.
The backstory here is a textbook example of media bait and switch. A reporter, clearly aiming to corner Karoline, asked why Trump seemed unbothered by the wildfires raging in California, while simultaneously pushing to cut funding for certain state departments. It was a classic gotcha question, carefully crafted to paint Trump as heartless and out of touch. But Karoline, unshaken. Without missing a beat, she fired back, slicing through the narrative like a hot knife through butter. "It's about priorities," she declared, her tone sharp and deliberate. And she was right. America is drowning in reckless spending, buried under mountains of debt. Someone has to take the wheel before the whole ship goes under. That's why Trump and his administration are laser-focused on cutting non-essential funding, especially the very same woke programs Karoline had just exposed. "Why should taxpayers foot the bill?" she continued. "For programs that do nothing for hardworking Americans." Silence. The trap had backfired spectacularly. The reporter blinked, speechless, and Whoopi frozen, because once again, Karoline had flipped the script and laid bare the emptiness behind all the manufactured outrage.
Advise the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress?
Well, as the OMB memo states, this is certainly within the confines of the law. So White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it.
Okay, so they disagree with lawmakers who say that they don't have the power to freeze this funding.
Again, I would point you to the language in the memo that clearly states this is within the law.
And all that happened on Friday night. The administration fired several inspectors general without giving Congress the 30-day legally required notification that they were being fired. I think only 2 were left at DHS and the DOJ. And then yesterday we saw several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch.
Simple as that. The president has every right to remove anyone who fails to perform in the role they were entrusted with. It's not personal, it's business. When someone can't uphold their responsibilities, especially when those failures start draining taxpayer dollars, it's game over. Of course, the woke media is in full meltdown mode, rushing to shield their ideological allies in public office. Cue the pearl-clutching and dramatic headlines. But Trump, he's taking no prisoners. He's not here to coddle incompetence or play along with the buddy system that's shielded mediocrity for far too long. You're hired based on merit, and you're fired based on results. That's the standard. And Trump is wielding his authority exactly as the Constitution allows. Let's be real. If the roles were reversed and a Democrat was cleaning house, these same reporters would be singing praises about accountability. But because it's Trump, instant outrage. The hypocrisy is almost comical. Trump isn't here for participation trophies or safe spaces. He's here to fix what's broken. And if that means clearing out the dead weight, then so be it.
ICE has made so far since President Trump came back into office. Can you just tell us the numbers? How many have a criminal record versus those who are just in the country illegally?
All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way, so it's a big culture shift in our nation to view someone who breaks our immigration laws as a criminal, but that's exactly what they are.
And just like that, game, set, match. Karoline Leavitt didn't just weather the ambush, she obliterated it, leaving Whoopi, Joy, and the woke brigade scrambling for cover. No cheap shots, no low blows, just cold, hard facts delivered with surgical precision and the force of a freight train. The message was crystal clear. Competence wins, victimhood loses, and if the ladies of The View thought they could bully, mock, or outmaneuver Leavitt, they've just learned a painful lesson. They picked the wrong fight. Trump's team is here to clean house, and judging by Leavitt's performance, they've got exactly the right woman for the job. And with that, we wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed this fiery take on the ongoing clash between Karoline Leavitt and Whoopi Goldberg, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more unfiltered breakdowns. Don't forget to share this video with your friends because together we're pushing back against the woke narrative. Thanks for watching.